Child trafficking is a global issue that continues to grow immensely daily. Children are victims of this horrible crime by horrible means all around the world. Eastern Europe, Latin America, South Asia, and Africa are the four major regions where child trafficking occurs the most. Child trafficking is a huge concern all around the world. Eastern Europe is no exception. The European Commission has stated that child trafficking is one of the trends that is increasing most sharply. In Albania, you can see a sharp increase of people being used in human trafficking. Children specifically have been the target. Mainly younger girls around the ages of 10 to 12 years are being trafficked and taken advantage of. A majority of these young girls are being raped and having children of their own with no way to take care of them or have an abortion. Girls who live in rural areas are more likely to be raped than those who live in more populated areas. When it comes to Europe in general, there were 3,226 people at risk of being trafficked in 2015. This was a 40% increase from the previous year. Between 2013 and 2014, there were 15,846 people who were trafficked, and 15% of those individuals were children. Since 2013, there has been a major increase in the amount of people being trafficked, especially kids. Hungary, Poland, and Bulgaria are among the top 5 countries in the region where many victims of child trafficking come from, the other 2 countries being the Netherlands and Romania. There has been a push for the better protection of children since there is such a large amount of child trafficking occurring in this area. Action to Prevent Child Trafficking in Southeastern Europe was a report given back in 2006. A way they saw to prevent these events from happening was to have a cooperation all across the region about predators who operate in many countries. They also wanted different countries to understand that the parents and anyone who comes in contact with these kids have obligation to abide by the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Child trafficking in Latin America is not a rare occurrence. The main source of child trafficking are the many different criminal organizations whose business is an illegal child adoption. The organizations work with state officials to help them get a hold of babies and children. The organizations take advantage of their country's weak institution and incomplete legislation. Sometimes the adoptive family doesn't even know how this child came to them for adoption. Out of all the countries in Latin America, Guatemala has the most child trafficking and since the 1980s has been the world's biggest leader in the illegal adoption market. The United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund says that poverty is a decisive factor in child trafficking. This makes child trafficking a social problem that can be associated with race. Indigenous children from impoverished families and backgrounds are at a very high risk. Street children are especially vulnerable in Latin America because they have no protection like a family or school. And when the children become a certain age, child trafficking moves away from the illegal adoption side and more towards the child labor and prostitution side of child trafficking. Within South Asia, human trafficking has grown 500% from 2013 to 2017. South Asia is also the most rapidly increasing and second biggest region where it occurs in the world. This human trafficking consists of mostly women and for the majority children, as 150,000 children and women are trafficked annually. This amount is increasing each year. The primary places of child trafficking within the South Asian region are Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and Nepal. In all of these places, children are trafficked in extremely harsh ways. Such ways include many types of abuse, both physical and mental, being sold for various reasons, arranged marriage, forced work labor, sex slavery with mostly females, rape, to work as servants, and much more. Bonded laborers or debt bondage laborers use the children to help them earn money to pay off debt they have. Solely in Pakistan, children are trafficked oftentimes for sex slavery. Children trafficked are also sold into forced labor, where oftentimes they are used by military groups to act as spotters and suicide bombers. In Bangladesh and India, children are trafficked from and in refugee camps, where they are used for forced labor and sex slavery. There is also immense amounts of kidnapping threats throughout the entire region. Technology plays a big role with these threats because children do not know any better. They get trafficked online by means of sex tourism and child pornography. Human traffickers sometimes also use children as spotters in public areas to act as spies before they traffic more children by using promising sounding means. Within this region as a whole, organizations are attempting to help with this global issue. The South Asia Association for Regional Cooperation continues to make attempts through having conventions to raise awareness. However, it has been relatively unsuccessful so far. The information and communications technology has created a toll-free helpline for people to contact in hopes of trying to track children who have been trafficked. The ICT also tries to trace acts of sexual abuse and all types of unfair treatment towards trafficked children. In Nepal, anti-human trafficking organizations are beginning to use updating technology like drones to cover areas that people are not able to and increase monitoring systems. Other organizations involved with child trafficking are trying to help by increasing border security, investing more in surveillance systems, keeping up more suspects for human traffickers, creating better practices for trafficked children, bringing the region together as a whole to make cooperation and communication stronger, and much more. There are also some rehabilitation centers for children who have been separated from their families to safely get help with psychological bondage issues. Approximately 800,000 people are trafficked annually in West and Central Africa. Alarming rates of children being trafficked have been reported by numerous sources, such as the National Center for Biotechnology Information and the International Labor Organization. The UN office says that trafficking is the result of poverty and is the fastest growing crime. The number of children being trafficked is double the number of women and is slowly getting worse. Child trafficking is beginning because of the incline of poverty and the decline of tradition within tribes and large families. Many parents are talked into giving up their children to traffickers because they are promised money and a better life if they let their children leave to go do labor. Parents are told that their children will be fed and treated humanely. However, when they get to the camps, none of these promises are kept. Children between 12 to 16 are mainly targeted for the duties traffickers have hold over. Interviews done by the ILO are stating that children are made to work 10 to 20 hours a day, operating dangerous tools and equipment with scarce situations of food and water. With those factors, death is an everyday outcome, and it happens to 1 in 5 children. STDs are common as well in places like Kenya, Ghana, and Zimbabwe. Young girls are known as purity bridges, bringing HIV and other diseases. Like most general opinions, United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund Executive Director Carol Bellamy says that trafficking is among the worst violations of child rights. This organization is also calling the government to put an end to the brazen trade. Children are not only being used for labor because of poverty, armed conflict, and instability, but are being sold for their organs in a system called muti killings, which is generally a human trafficking issue but is now sprouting to children. Traffickers will sell the organs of children to people that do witchcraft. If a child is lucky enough to get out or grow out of the trafficking crisis, they often develop mental disorders or carry a deadly or viral disease. Multiple organizations are working their way into fixing the crisis. Many have ideas of how to go about it, but are still in the process. Philip de Adres, head of the UN Office of Drugs and Crime, says that cooperation needs to get stronger and build resources because nothing is happening right now. And if the international police and judicial cooperation network work together, it should get rid of a lot more criminal associations. The International Program on the Elimination of Child Labor is also making a big effort in the countries of Benin, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Gabon, Ghana, Mali, Nigeria, and Togo. They just started their way on beginning intense research, awareness, training, and strengthening legal systems. Overall, our stance taken on this global issue is that it is just disappointing that people feel the need to target innocent children and ultimately take their chance at life away from them. We think that anti-human trafficking organizations from all around the world should join together in order to put an end to this once and for all. Instead of just communicating it and attempting to stop it through word of mouth, more action must be taken in order to get something done about it. For years to follow, organizations must increase investment to the situation, increase security and safety for children, and make a stand to stop child trafficking.